I'm Paul Arney. Welcome to the Apothecary. This is where it all starts. This is our well. It's a pretty nice place, right? The water's coming out of the ground, unadulterated, and we use that sentiment throughout the entire brewing process. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you a quick little brewery tour, and we're just going to follow the path that our beer takes from up here in this wonderful wooded alpine zone down to our barrel, cellar, and tasting room in Bend proper. To have the opportunity to use water directly from the source is it's a blessing that I don't take lightly. Breweries throughout history have been tied to the place where they are, right? The water that comes out of the ground, the yeast that comes out of the air, and the raw materials that the brewer can source from nearby. Those things, coupled with the process, the brewing process that comes out of the brewer's mind, is what's created all the beer styles that we are familiar with today. And that is about the essence of the Apothecary, right? We're not trying to brew beers to style. What we are trying to do is take what this wonderful place has to offer, and so I hope you'll enjoy the rest of our little tour.
So here we are inside my little brew house. It's tiny, but you will notice that there's very little stainless and mostly wood. It's a beautiful copper kettle. So what we do is we have a little dump room right outside here, a little three-roller mill, where we grind all that awesome metric-grade malt. Then we bring it in buckets. We don't have a hydrator. And these here, I've got two of these puncheons that we've converted to mash tuns. We put a false bottom in and drain ports on the bottom. So we effectively are just doing a straight infusion mash into oak. We do this in the evening. We mash in the evening. Allow the mash to rest overnight. That gives us a few things. It gives us a better, deeper color extraction, slightly better efficiency because, as you imagine, it's not great. I think we get upwards of 80%. So that's not too bad. But the one thing that we get from this overnight mash that has taken me some time to understand is I believe we get some tannin extraction from that extended contact with the husk, which allows for our beer, which tends to be tart, to have a nice rounded mouthfeel after conditioning in the barrel or in the bottle for some time. So this overnight mash, I think, is very important to our process. So we'll run off from our mash tuns into our kettle. The kettle is about 3 barrels volume, it's about 100 gallons. Depending on how long we boil the wort, we can increase the caramelization factor because of this wonderful copper kettle. We get this house caramelization character that's unique to us. So that's very important. We use whole flower hops, generally just one charge in the kettle, either aged or fresh, being last year's. Okay, so run off the kettle, boil. So at this point, we mashed in. The mash rests overnight. Next morning, we come in, run off the kettle, boil for 2 to 4 hours or longer. And then what we do is we run that wort into another barrel. We've got 2 of these puncheons. We've got 2 mash tuns and 2 puncheons. So we can turn 2 brews in one day. It's just more efficient. It's less taxing on our septic system because that's something that we have to manage as well. It's more efficient time-wise for myself and Connor. But anyway, after we boil, we run the wort through a heat exchanger into these, what we call settling barrels, settling barrels. We settle first. That allows the protein, the true, the hot break and the cold break from the boiling activity to settle out. The next day, so here we are, day 3, we'll empty one of our fermenters. I'll show you a picture of one in a minute. Clean the fermenter, and then we'll run that wort from the settling barrels into the fermenter, leaving all the hot and cold break behind. Because we're managing our own yeast strains by top cropping and bottom cropping, I'm trying to keep the wort as clean as possible. So this step here is similar to a whirlpool, but it's much more effective because we're giving it time, which is another ingredient that is very, very important to us here at the Apothecary. Time is our friend, time is our ally. We leave a lot behind in there. So the clean wort goes into the fermenter, and then we'll take the yeast that we harvested from the previous few batches, inoculate our fermenter. We get a quick initial primary, and then we'll harvest that yeast for future use. Open fermentation takes place for about 4 to 5 days, harvest yeast a few times, and then we put lids on these open fermenters, and allow another couple weeks for the yeast to settle out naturally, no glycol, before we rack it into barrels like these here. Once we get the beer in the barrels, we load them onto our flatbed truck, drive them to town, unload them, and put them away in our barrel cellar, which we will top off these barrels 2 to 3 times a year. We can talk more about that later. It's essential here in the high desert where it's so dry to top off our barrels, keep the barrels flowing, and to inoculate with a little bit of fresh yeast during the process just to kind of keep things going where we want them to go. Okay, so I used to think that the wash down hose was the brewer's best friend. Once I got my little brewery, I realized that for me, the pallet jack and me, like this. Okay, so what we got here is our primary fermenter. It is made of Oregon oak by Oregon Barrel Works over McMinnville. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Riley. So we call this fermenter Obi-Wan because Oregon Barrel Works, and this is our first fermenter made by them that we've got. So this is Obi-Wan. For primary fermentation, it happens like I was telling you about. We harvest yeast, all that stuff. Oregon oak, very important. A lot of our ingredients, we're trying to keep everything coming from the state of Oregon. So Oregon oak, Oregon malt, Oregon hops, Oregon water, Oregon grain. Oregon beer. One other little tidbit I wanted to share with you has to do with this barrel right here. I've found a lot of inspirations from various breweries, brewing styles around the world. Big old moth just planted here. And this one was inspired by Germany and the Reinheitsgebot. Right? As you probably know, the German purity law, which was created before yeast was discovered, it's malt, hops, water. Right? They added yeast later. That's all they can use to make beer, which on one hand is really cool because it eliminates a lot of these industrial processing aids that many brewers rely on. It also, some people argue, has stymied creation. I mean, you look at Belgium right next door, we didn't have that, and look at how interesting and creative their beers are. Either way, both great brewing cultures. Well, one thing that brewers will do is adjusting their water, right? The pH is really important for enzyme activity in mash, bitterness extraction out of the kettle. So that's one thing the breweries will do. And these days, brewers will do that using mined mineral salts, calcium sulfate, calcium chloride. They can buffer the water and adjust the pH with these mineral salts, right? And because of my definition of what the word natural means and how we're making beer, I don't have that option. So I looked to Germany, and the way that they get around it is they have what's called sour wort. So typically in German brew houses, they will collect a little bit of wort from a brew and inoculate it in the basement with their house lactobacillus strain, you know. Same thing for sauerkraut, right? It's like it's a lactic acid producer, bacteria that's feeding on sugar. So we do the same thing here, but of course, because of our eccentricities, we're doing this stuff in wood. I have a heating element in this barrel. Keep the barrel about 120 degrees, 125 degrees. Run our wort in there, and voila, after a bit of time, the wort sours. It's really a lovely lactic acidity, and what we'll do with this is we'll use it in the brew kettle and in a mash to adjust our pHs. So not only is it doing this function that we need for optimum efficiency, it is also adding house character, because heating wort in a barrel and souring it, it's like a sourdough starter. And everybody's got their own unique one, and we just have kept ours going. So, pretty fascinating. Really, really special. We will also use this sour wort to melt our Oregon honey into down at our barrel cellar when it's time for bottling. Because as you might expect, we naturally condition and carbonate all of our beer. This is Hazelwood. This is our barrel transport mechanism. He's a 1972 International flatbed. We've got the stake bed on him now because he's dual purpose, right? It's time to create a more fire safe area around our house this time of year. So stake bed's on, he goes to the dump, but advertising on the way, as you can see, brewery logo on the side. I'll show you some pictures of him in his glory. But during this COVID time, we've essentially shut down our brewery and are just working off of our barrel and bottles that we've already accumulated. So Hazelwood temporarily retired, right? Just giving him a little break. Just loading him full of yard debris to take to the dump. Alright, well here we are in our barrel cellar down in the Century Center, Bend, Oregon. It's about 10 miles from our brewery. Connor Curry is down here bottling some beer today. It's our collaboration with the brewery called The Referend out in New Jersey. So if you haven't heard of them, you should look them up. We smoked a bunch of peaches on a Traeger and ate some beer on it for a while, so it should be pretty good. But as you can see behind me, this is where we store all of our beer. All of our beer gets aged in barrels, varying lengths, some as short as 4 months and some as long as 3 or 4 years. And just prior to bottling today, Connor mixed in that Oregon honey I was talking about with some of that sour wort and rousted up that with some fresh yeast in the tank, and now pushing it into the bottles. Here we are over in our bottle conditioning zone. So like I was telling you before, all of our beer gets carbonated naturally. So that's yeast with some sugar, which we use Oregon honey generally. I mean, sometimes we use fruit juices. And then thyme, right? So you put the yeast and the sugar in with the beer, set it aside quietly for a little while, and you get these nice, natural, little tiny bubbles you can't get any other way. So all these bins behind me are full of our bottles, which we cork and cage. Okay, last stop, our tasting room. Kind of dead right now. Well,
we do have an online sales platform, and we are open for to-go bottle sales from 3 to 6, Thursday through Saturday. And when this is all over, I hope you can come down here and enjoy the whole Ale Apothecary experience. Art over industry. Be well. Thanks a lot.